What happens very often is he gives a loan, he leaves the cultivator or the investor to do what he likes. 3 months later, 6 months later, he finds the man is defaulting, man is missing, he goes, and what happened? We all agree that in between many things can happen. These are human beings we are talking of. They can have all kinds of family requirements, sicknesses, funerals. So that is why I say we got to look after. Industry itself can fail due to reasons and factors outside their control. The financial institutions have got to look at these aspects as well when we give money. I can tell you one thing with our experience in HNB. There was a belief a few years ago that village people are bad borrowers. I don't agree. I have said this everywhere in public forums. My experience having done commercial banking is the village people are much more reliable borrowers than the urban sector traders. Interest rates is also a factor which is much talked about. There again, it is not a major factor which prevents a villager or industrialist from starting off something. As long as we guide them and make sure that they earn sufficient inward profits to pay the interest margin. These are all things that we got to guide. We have dozens of occasions where people start industry, start cultivation, start various farming projects, but they don't have the required guidance. Guidance when I say in marketing, in accounting. Say a poultry farming man has got to be looked after by the people who are giving the finance about the veterinary surgery requirements, medical requirements for the poultry farming or the cattle breeding. A cultivator has to be looked at with compassion if there's a drought or a flood. But some bankers are not used to doing that. If they fail, if they default, they are looked upon as bad people. That cultural attitude should be changed. It's only then that we can see a success of what we want to see in the country. I strongly believe that microfinancing should not be left alone for the institutions, financial institutions alone. These villages we are talking of, there are so many other basic facilities they require, such as health, education, water, power, roadways. Without them, there is no purpose in our giving finance to a small industry. If the man has no market, if the man has no means to bring it to the town to sell, if the man doesn't have the power to do the work, so all this means microfinance can progress only if there's some of these services are the responsibility of the state, not the private sector. So there should be a joint, collective way forward by the state and the private institutions jointly, looking after all these aspects in totality for microfinancing to progress. Our bank carried out a survey about 10 years ago. We found that at that time there were 93,000 village hamlets in Sri Lanka. 93,000 village hamlets. Each maybe about 3, 4, 5 square kilometers. And each village hamlet had about 150 to 200 people living, maybe 75 families. When you talk about 93,000 village units, how can a few financial institutions cater to them? It's simply not practicable. So it's had to be a total effort. This morning, the opening address, the Deputy Governor was mentioning about regulating these authorities. As mentioned by Mr. Vijayawardhan, I think that will be a bit of a dangerous situation. At this point of time, regulation will be necessary. But we got to look at these aspects where how can there be practical outlook for all of us. All the banks, including the foreign banks, have a commitment and obligation to contribute to microfinance promoting. Why? Because they have access to the same areas for their deposit mobilization. I can tell you from HNB's point of view, we have a huge deposit base due to our involvement in the village financing activities. We have a huge deposit base. Maybe small amounts. But with the technology development, we have no problem in handling volumes. We don't need to have all the banks to have branches physically in every area. But the 93,000, I'm sure the hamlets are now much more than that, at least 100,000. But the 90,000 villages cannot be handled by one bank or even for that matter 50 banks. There should be a system where these should be given region-wise to certain banks. And the people should be given necessary guidance. We have examples of people doing very well in their small industry. But with the outlook of hand-to-mouth existence, they don't look at beyond that. They don't have a commercial outlook. They don't have an idea about profitability. They have no idea about controls. They have no basic knowledge about setting out the accounts, expenditure, and the income. These are things that we all can do if there's a planned approach to this process. It's not only the financing that is necessary, friends. And it is, we as banks, let us realize that microfinancing, promoting village economy is not a strategy, not a commercial venture, not a social responsibility. I feel it's a national necessity on the part of all of us. As a country cannot progress if the majority of the people in the country has no economic progress in themselves. It is a small man who will become a medium-level man. It's a medium-level man who will become a large-sized man. It is a large-sized man who will become a conglomerate. Examples are there enough and all over the world. So we have to start from the bottom, from the home in the village to the village, from the village to the surrounding villages. It has to be a very well managed and monitored process. The approach should be so structural. It's not a question of appointing somebody and giving him 5 million rupees and say, lend this to people. It won't work. It has not worked. It will cause continued situation where there is not much income generation, there is no much unemployment, no savings, but work is going on. Lives are going on. It won't work that way, friends. So focus in microfinancing has to be a total picture, not only by the financial institutions, but financial institutions require not people who are urban-based, who have no outlook in the village, people who will understand the village man, develop his enthusiasm gradually, because we have plenty of idle assets, hidden resources in these villages. My friend Chandula, who is one of the organizers, will tell me, he has been doing this with us for the last 15, 20 years, the microfinancing schemes. When you go to villages, we'll be amazed to see the idle assets, things growing in trees, things just left alone, not used at all. Who is identifying these things? Villagers don't understand these things. But this is all wealth. So guidance at every area is a must for microfinancing progress. Unless there is an organized effort by all the financial institutions and the state institutions. Today we know, I'm not undermining anything, but we know the red tape or the procedures we got to adopt to get things done in the government sector. Approval of plans or various environmental issues. These things also put off villagers when they come to do a project, when they are told to go from pillar to post, get this authority, that authority. It's a process. Some people start off with a lot of enthusiasm. They come to banks and say, yes, I'm going to do this. And we also very happily see the man's enthusiasm. We give him the money. We give him advance to buy the land or buy the machinery. Then he goes and spends his time going through the process of approvals, whatever the industry is going to be. Suddenly we find the man has lost his enthusiasm. He had gone from pillar to post. By that time he had borrowed a part of the funds. These are things that we can't blame any particular issue, but this is why, unless there's a total focus on a total requirement, somebody takes money for an industry or cultivation, Next day there's a sudden funeral or a child sickness or something, you have to spend the money. Is that anything wrong with the man? Is he dishonest? No, my dear friends. Unless we are in close touch with that particular entrepreneur or the man, we will never know the man's problem. We got to go and stand by him. It's only then that our money will be used properly. So these are practical aspects which we got to see in trying to implement microfinancing. Marketing, accounting, I told. So I think overall, unless the countries as a whole look at microfinancing as an essential national requirement, it's only then that there can be national prosperity and economic progress to individuals, groups, as well as to the country as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay Tilaka, for sharing 50 years of wisdom in banking and how it can be applied to move the microfinance industry of Sri Lanka to a higher level. And now I would like to invite Dr. Kirimandeniya to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nimal. Member of panel and ladies and gentlemen, my sincere thanks for organizing committee you invite for me to share my views and experience with you. I think myself and Mr. Vijay Tilaka, we discussed when we started banking with the poor with our Australian friends more than 15 years ago, both of us representing commercial bank and the non-commercial banking sector. I remember in Melbourne or somewhere, or Singapore, we presented some experience. After that event, this is again recalling my memory, how we try to motivate the donors and the practitioners in this region participating in microfinance. I don't know whether my presentation is really strict to topics, but anyway, I will use a couple of minutes to share my experience with you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nimal Fernando, mentioned about SANASA. SANASA is a Sinhala name, acronym, means Thrift and Credit Cooperative. We use this word as a labeling of our program. We introduced brand for the market as a new organization. We started in 1978 with the collaboration of, with the participation of various village leaders in my hometown, in my home village. As a result of that, now we become a bit well-organized institution. As an organization, this SANASA representing 8,400 community-based primary societies. All are registered under the Cooperative Act in Sri Lanka. This organization actually started in 1906, but it reactivated by me in 1978 to sort out some small farmers' credit problem. I worked with the village tank renovation program in 1975 and 76 in northwestern province with the assistance of Freedom from Hunger campaign in Germany. And we started, constructed 98 small tanks. We thought if there is a water for farmers, they will get real yield from their paddy field. Unfortunately, it was not happen. So we had done some research, and I moved with the farmers. Then we realized they are mortgaging their house for the boutique keeper, neighboring people who are living in the Kadamandiya small township. So they mortgage their coconut tree or their house at the rate of 5 rupees or 10 rupees. Some paddy house they mortgage maybe 200 rupees, 500 rupees. It was the situation of 1977 and 78 when market economy introduced to this Sri Lanka. So I realized there must be some effort to started some program for poor people to provide capital to their hand. That is why I came to this program. Now we have a 1 million membership, and our clientele, altogether clients about 3.2 million. Altogether we